Okay, thank you all for joining us this evening. Welcome to Mentor Walk's virtual conversation series. I'm Adina Jacobs, and together with Bobby Marlab, we're the co-founders of Mentor Walks in Australia. I want to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land across the whole of Australia and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. We have people in this session from everywhere across Australia, which is pretty incredible. And if you don't know the traditional owners of the land in your area, I encourage you to learn about them, learn about their history and their background and who they are. I'm in Sydney, and the owners here are the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. Today's conversation is on taking control of your life and covers career and relationships, which can also have an impact on your dating life. The wonderful Julie Dempsey is with us to talk us through her experience and learnings that she's gained by examining her own expectations of herself and how she shows up for others, as well as through her career and personal experiences over the last few years. Before I introduce Julie properly, I want to talk a bit about our conversation series. We started it in the middle of COVID as a response to helping our mentee community as much as we possibly could. Our mentors, quite a few of them came to us and asked what they could do to support our community more. And so we lined up a series of incredible women. This is her second conversation that she's done with us, so she's one of them, to talk about specific topics that are interesting and important to mentees, and to help people learn more about our mentors' experiences and then learn things that they can then take back and use in their own lives. So today is our 11th conversation, which is pretty incredible. And I'm quickly just going to give you a recap of a couple of the ones that we've had. They're all available on our YouTube channel. We've had Fear of Losing Your Job with Lindley Edwards, Driving Your Career in a Downturn with Claire Hatton and Greta Thomas, Know Your Strengths to Drive Your Success with Mim Bartlett, How to Recession-Proof Your Finances with Kate McCallum, and we've done one on the budget as well, What It Means for You with Sherelle Murphy and Kate McCallum. Like I said, they're all available on YouTube, and I want to say a deep, deep thank you to our mentors who answered our call for how we could support you more. We've had incredible women step up and give their time and their experience and knowledge, and that's continuing through this year. So there are some incredible ones coming up as well. So follow us on social media so you can know what we're doing and book in for the next ones that are coming through. The other thing I want to touch on very quickly before we move into Julie's conversation is that we've got a lot going on at Mentor Walks at the moment. Our next Sydney walk is this Friday. It's a full house with a waiting list. We have our next virtual walk on Wednesday, the 16th of June, and we've already got women registered from all across Australia. We've got some women from Adelaide, from Ballarat, and from Bendigo and Coonabarabran and other places that I probably shouldn't try and pronounce because I don't want to discredit them. We're also launching in Hobart for the first time with our new partners, Hydro Taz. That's on the 18th of June. And like I said, we've got more conversation series coming up soon. So follow on social media for info about all of the dates. So for any of you who have been to any of our events before, you know that Mentor Walks is about women supporting women. And so we ask you to do this. When you walk away today from this experience, we're asking you to do one thing, big or small, to support another woman. It could be something as small as tapping someone on the shoulder if you think they look a bit flat, or something as big as calling out an injustice if you see it. Just do one thing to share your experience, to check on another woman, one thing to pay it forward. Whatever it is, please make a conscious effort to support another woman in the next few days. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce the wonderful and amazing Julie Dempsey. Today's conversation is all about taking control of your life. Julie is the author of the Amazon #1 hot new release, Found, Swiping Right on Me to Find Love. She's a highly sought after hypnotherapist, transformational mindset coach, startup advisor, and investor who has spent her career helping people and organizations grow and thrive. She loves helping people unlock their mind to reach their full potential. And she believes that if we can be kinder, more compassionate, and respectful to ourselves and others, we can change our own lives and the world for the better. In her previous career, Julie spent over 20 years in the Silicon Valley in leadership positions with various large and small companies and startups. And she did that before coming to Australia to run an accelerator for women-led businesses. Her unique combination of skills has made Julie a sought-after speaker, facilitator, sorry, I'm tripping over myself today, mentor and advisor for the Australian business community. She's passionate about working with people groups and organizations to adapt their mindset for greater personal satisfaction and professional success. And on a personal note, Julie and I met right after she arrived in Australia. It was before we launched our first Mentor Walks event. She's been to almost every event since then. And like I said before, this is her second conversation. So she's an incredible supporter of women in our community. She has a ton of sage experience and learnings that she's passing on to us. So many of you have sent questions through ahead of time, and Julie's taken the most common ones and incorporated them into her talk today. We're going to run for about 40 minutes, and then anything that Julie hasn't addressed, we'll do a bit of a Q&A at the end. So as we're going through her conversation, please drop your questions into the chat, and we'll pick some of the common ones or the ones that haven't been addressed yet, and Julie will talk about them at the very end. So I'm going to step aside now and let Julie take it from here, and I'll be back at the end.
Great. Thank you so much, Adina. Thanks for that nice introduction, and welcome everybody. I'm so glad you're here today. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we're all sitting and pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. We've all come from different places and done different things all day long. And some of us might have been a little bit tense in trying to get to this talk on time. So I'd love to start by just having a couple minutes to come into the space and to relax. So if everybody's comfortable, I'd love for you to just close your eyes and listen to my voice for a minute, and I'll kind of welcome us all in so that we can relax. So close down your eyes and take a nice deep breath in and out. And take another deep breath in and out. And feel your bum on the seat, wherever you might be, and feel yourself just sinking in and relaxing every part of your body. Feel the muscles in your neck begin to relax, and your jaw. And imagine and feel that every part of your body is just relaxing more with each breath that you take. And as you breathe in, you feel so much ease. And as you breathe out, you're breathing out anything that you need to wash away from the day. So just take another deep breath in and relax, and out, letting go of anything that's not serving you. And then just give your body a little wiggle anywhere that you feel you need to kind of let go of some extra energy. And start coming back into the room, feeling relaxed, opening your eyes, and ready to have a little chat together. So hopefully everyone feels nice and present and relaxed right now. And I'm going to start by telling all of you a little story that you might recognize yourself in. So the story will take about 4 minutes, and I'll invite you again, if you feel more comfortable, feel free to close your eyes and just listen to these words and feel into what I'm saying, or keep your eyes open if you're more comfortable with that. So the story goes, once upon a time, there was a little girl born in a suburban middle-class town to parents who wanted to give her nothing but the best. When she was a bit over 2, they gave her a little sister, and 2 years later, a little brother. They filled her head with ideas that as a big sister, she needed to always behave and be a good girl and do what she was told without questioning. She needed to set a good example for her sister and brother and never misbehave. And if they did, she'd get into trouble because she was older and she should know better. And she was also taught things like she needed to share. She needed to think of others before she thought of herself, and never be loud or obnoxious or bossy or selfish or cause any kind of trouble. She needed to be a good girl. And while her parents were well-intentioned and wanting only the best for her, She was being socialized by her parents, by her school, and often the media, that in order to be loved and appreciated, she needed to listen to what others told her to do and how to be, and often ignore her own feelings and her own desires, because being that good girl meant putting other people's needs before her own. She was being socialized into believing that she needed to please others in order to be liked and appreciated and loved. She was being socialized that love wasn't actually unconditional, it was earned. And whenever she was hurt or upset, she was quickly told that she was fine and to just get over it and be a big girl. And she always needed to behave. So she learned to keep those emotions inside and not show them. Growing up, she did the best she could to follow these rules that were becoming so deeply ingrained because she wanted desperately to be liked and to earn the love that she desired. As the years passed, it became second nature to her to be this way. And then as she grew, she started to excel in school, and the accolades came. And she would beam with pride at the good work she was doing. And then her mother would say to her, "It's not polite to brag." And her grandmother would say, "Don't get a big head," or "Don't get too big for your britches." So she was learning that being a good girl also meant knowing where her place was and being humble and not necessarily having a voice. She continued to excel through high school, and when it was time to go to uni, she didn't question if she would go to uni because that's what she was told to do. It just happened. And it was made very clear that she needed to continue to follow by these rules she'd been socialized into. And then she was taught that being part of being a good girl was to get a good job, to work hard, to attract a man, and when the time was right, to get him to propose and to marry to her. So from the very time that she started actually liking boys and dating, she was always worried about if they would like her and she would get them to the place that they needed to be with her, treating her. It never occurred to her that she should have been asking instead, do I like them and do they deserve to have me? That same feeling spilled over into her work. When she started to interview for jobs, she worried if they liked her and would do anything to get them to say yes and want her when she interviewed. She'd been taught she was lucky to get a good job and that she needed to work hard to keep that job and she should be appreciative of it. So she continued to do everything she could to make that happen and worked hard. But she was constantly worried that the men she was dating would decide they wouldn't actually like her, or that she would get fired from her job for not doing good enough work, that she wouldn't be able to please everyone involved. So she continued to work hard and please everyone. And before you know it, she landed that job and then the next big job and the husband. And on the outside, it looked like she had the perfect life. Yet still inside, she was feeling she wasn't good enough. She wasn't doing enough. She didn't quite fit in, maybe. That people didn't really like her for her. She needed to actually continue to please them, to support them, to accomplish things for her to win their love and their approval. And she was so busy pleasing everyone and working so hard to get them to like her. She hadn't yet realized she didn't actually know who she was or what she wanted. There wasn't time to think about that. She was so busy pleasing everyone and doing what they expected her to do. And besides, who was she to complain? On the outside, it looked like she had it all. She kept all of those feelings inside where they were safe. She didn't tell anyone of her feared shortcomings or her anxieties, or recognize the burnout that came from working so hard to please everyone. She didn't take care of herself because that would have been selfish based on what she'd been taught. She didn't focus much on herself at all. She suffered in silence and kept a smile on her face and kept going and doing more because that would keep everyone happy. And that's the story of the first 4 decades of my life. And I'm guessing that's the story of a lot of your lives too, that a lot of those things resonate with you. Because we were conditioned in this way to be pleasers, to take all of this on and to not think about ourselves. And somewhere along the way, we begin to get lost and realize that doing all of this is really tiring. It doesn't mean we don't have good lives and there aren't good parts of it, but we've given up a lot of ourselves because we've let go of really knowing who we are and what we want and how to set boundaries and feel confident. Because working so hard to please everybody else, we lose that. And that is the big reason behind why I became a coach and a hypnotherapist, and I wrote the book Found, because I realized that having conversations with so many other women, they were going through this, and I wanted to help them shortcut the struggles that they might have and help them move forward to reignite and figure out who they are and build that confidence, that self-belief, that self-love that we need to have that balance in our life that's going to allow us to have the life we really desire and deserve. So that's what I want to talk with you about now, to help figure out how do we get back there. Because I'm guessing as you were listening to that story and you heard it was about somebody else, you were feeling empathy. But how often have you turned that empathy around to yourself and said, I deserve more. I deserve to be taking care of myself. It's not actually selfish to do that. So first of all, in that effort, I want each of you to take a minute to congratulate yourselves for being here and for taking the time for yourself right now, because I know we're all busy. We all have so much going on. We have so many people relying on us that we put our own needs and priorities last. And the way that we can actually fulfill everybody else's needs is to put our needs first and take care of ourselves so we can take care of others. And so that we can do that without feeling guilty, because that's another big part of this. When we actually step away and do these things, the guilt sets in. And that takes away any good things that we're doing for ourselves. So we want to be able to let that go. So how do we figure out, again, who am I? What do I want? What are my emotions? What am I feeling? How do I want to be? It's a lot of internal work to do. And in order to do that work, we need to find some space and time for ourselves to get quiet, to get still, and to be able to ask ourselves those questions. So I'm curious to hear, has anybody asked themselves those questions lately? Is this something people have been struggling with? Feel free to put a message in the chat. We're going to work through some exercises right now. You can take notes on some of these things, but I'll also put together a guide of things that we can be doing every day for ourselves to help come into this. Also know that as we're looking to get back in touch with ourselves and who we are, it's not a 1-minute job. It's not something that we can think about and all of a sudden we've got it figured out. It's taken me a decade to work through this for myself. And I've worked through it some on my own, some with other people, and some with professionals, retreats, all sorts of things. But taking that first step is what's so important, and that's what we're doing here today. The best way to take space, first of all, is to prioritize. If you're prioritizing everybody else over yourself and you're saying, I don't have the time to do this, we make time for the things that are our priorities. And when we prioritize other people, we don't often give ourselves that time. So if you need to, put the time in your diary. Block off an hour each day, or even 15 minutes each day to start with, so that you can start taking the time to have this kind of reflection. I'm seeing Carolyn saying a lot of the pressure comes from myself. Absolutely. We have higher expectations on ourselves than anybody else can. So we need to learn how to start letting that go. So find that quiet time. Don't let distractions in. Social media, letting the kids, come knock on our door when we're having that time, watching your favorite show, calling a friend. All of those things are fine and have a time and a place. I know for me, very often when I sit down and I say, I'm going to have this time for reflection, my first thought is, oh, I'll call Adina, for example, and say hello and see how she's doing. It's a natural thing for our brain to think, I want to run from this instead of sitting down to take the time. But be really kind with yourself about this. Realize that's what you're doing and sit your butt back in the chair and make it happen. Okay. And you don't need to be sitting in the chair. You could be meditating. You could be going for a walk out in nature. You could be just standing in the shower for a few minutes, or journaling, or listening to music. Whatever way is going to give you that time and space to open your mind, to have some reflection time. It's a place where you can allow yourself to ask the questions. Who am I? What do I want? How do I feel? So a good exercise to start with, to get back to understanding this, is walk through your life. And whether you write down on paper or you just think about this, I personally think it's a great thing to write down on paper. What are the things that you've enjoyed doing over your lifetime, over the years? What did you like to do when you were younger? What did you like to do when you felt free from responsibility? What are the things that you've accomplished that you feel most proud of? Make a list of all of these things. And when you've written them down and you've gone through that list, go back over that list and ask yourself, are these things that I actually really enjoyed, or was I doing them because I was told to? Because I was told that I should enjoy them? Because it was expected of me? And cross off the things on the list that the answer is yes to, so that you get to that smaller list of the things that you really, truly enjoyed, that really made you feel good, the things that you're really proud of accomplishing. And you want to keep that list of the things that you've done that you're proud of front and center, so that you can look at that regularly as well, because that helps boost your confidence, remembering all of these great accomplishments. So that's a good process to start out with, to have that list to work from. And then if we want to get to understanding, how do I feel? So everyone, just take a second right now and think, how do I feel? Is that emotional? Is it physical? What's the first thing that popped into your mind? Feel free to pop a word into, or a sentence into the chat if you like. Or were you blank? Do I not know how I feel? Am I not in touch with myself enough to be there? There are very many days when I can't answer that question still. But it's important to get really curious about that. I'm seeing words like worried, overwhelmed, empty, emotional. First of all, thank you for sharing that. Being able to say these things out loud, tired, fatigued, failure. Oh gosh, I don't believe that for a second. But those are the things that we're feeling, right? So we need to come back to, how do we get to a place where we have more energy? The biggest thing I'm seeing here is that we're all tired. We've had a lot going on. And getting back to really the heart of ourselves and who we are and doing something for ourselves is going to help release that tired, because pleasing everybody is very tiring. It leads to burnout. So let's focus in on, how can we get to understand how we're feeling and getting ourselves to a place where we're feeling stronger. But I do want to take a second to say before I get there, like it's okay to feel these things. The fact that we are feeling them and noticing them is important because we all have good days and we have bad days. We have tired days, we have energetic days, we have sad days. And just really feeling that emotion and understanding it and being with it is important. Allowing ourselves to have these feelings. We don't have to gloss over them. The other day I saw a post by Glennon Doyle, who's one of my favorite authors, who wrote the book Untamed. I highly recommend it. Who said, yesterday I was sad for no reason. I couldn't figure out why. I just felt sad and I had this gloominess all day. And the next day I was happy and I didn't know why. The sadness went away. So we need to understand that these feelings that we're having, it's good to sit with them, to hold them. We don't need to necessarily wallow in them. And if we're getting to that point, reach out to somebody who can help you to shift that, whether it's a friend, a loved one, a coach, whatever, have that conversation. But we need to have all of these feelings so we can really understand who we are and what we want. And remember that when we're feeling those sad or tired feelings one day, the next day we might wake up happy. I know for me, whenever it's a sunshiny day and it was a cloudy, downcast day the day before, I'm very affected by that. I might have felt like crap that day. And the next day I woke up and I'm like, I didn't think it was going to be like this, but it's all better now. So keep that in mind. So if you were taught to bury those emotions and hold them deep inside of you, it's important to get really grounded in your body to start feeling them again. And I like to start with physical before emotional, because that's something that's easier for us to understand. And a good thing to do is first thing in the morning, when you open your eyes, just do a scan of your body from head to toe. And how are you feeling? Physically feel. How does my head feel on the pillow? How do my arms feel? Do I feel loose? Do I feel tight? And just take note of all of that. And once you're comfortable feeling through and taking stock of how you're feeling throughout your body, then move to your mind. Did I wake up tired? Did I wake up with energy? Am I excited about the day? Am I concerned about the day? And get curious and ask yourself lots of questions, because that's how we get to know ourselves again. Pay attention to what's coming up for you immediately, without any outside influence, before you leave your bed. Because at this point, you don't have to worry about how others are expecting you to feel or what's being expected of you for the day. Just get really, really tuned into, how am I feeling in this moment on my own? And practice this at different times in the day. Stop and take a pause and really think, how am I feeling right now? What's going on for me, physically and emotionally? And once you've gotten to a point where you're getting much better at this and you're feeling like you've got more insights, you can start testing this out in terms of how when you're interacting with other people, with colleagues, with loved ones, with new friends. If you're going on a first date, check in with yourself. How am I feeling with this person? Are there any physical signs that I'm not feeling good about my time spent with this person? I know there was somebody I started dating, and each time before I'd see him, I'd get this stomach ache. And I started realizing this was my body telling me this is not the right person for me, right? When you go into that meeting and you're not sure if this is the right person to be doing a business deal with, how is your body feeling? Take note of that. Listen to your intuition. Listen to your gut, literally, right? How is this feeling for you? Ask yourself these questions. You don't need to do it while you're actually having these conversations, right? You don't want to spend all of your time in your head while you're interacting with other people, but take time to reflect afterwards. Did I laugh? Did I feel uncomfortable? Did I have actual physical pain? Practice this on a regular basis until it gets to be just second nature. We're not taught these things as we're growing up, right? We're taught to dissociate from all of this. And now we need to bring it back inside. So then the next thing is, what do I want? So when I ask that question right now, what do I want? Do you have an answer? You can type that into chat. Is there an answer for what I want, what you want right now? I'm guessing based on what a lot of people said before, it might be sleep. Um, and by the way, you deserve sleep. And if you're feeling tired, the words we use around these things are so important. I saw something the other day that said, instead of telling yourself you're lazy because you're tired, telling yourself, I'm actually tired and I deserve some sleep. So I'm hearing purpose, hydration. I want more time, passion, recognition, more energy and focus, financial freedom. Yes. And the reality is, all of these things that we're talking about right now and the exercises that we can do can help us get there, because it helps us feel strong in ourself. And again, when we focus on ourself and take care of these things, the other things fall in line. So when you start to ask yourself, what do I want? Like, what do I want out of life? That's a really big question, and that's a hard one to answer. So we need to, again, practice. What do I want? Instead of having answers, based on what we were told we should want, really start feeling into this in our body. Start with easy things and make it a fixed set of answers. So, I'm going for a walk this morning. Do I want to turn left? Do I want to turn right? I'm going to wear a shirt. Do I want a red one or a blue one? Do I want eggs or cereal for breakfast? These are all really simple things to start asking yourself. But as you start getting better at providing answers and really feeling into that, then you start feeling more comfortable figuring out, what do I want, as opposed to what does everyone else want for me, or what do they expect? And as you start working through these things, it becomes habit to tie into your own feeling, to your own gut, to your own intuition, so that you can move forward onto bigger things. The things we think we've always wanted, sometimes we realize, going back to that list that I suggested earlier, is not necessarily what we actually want. It's just so ingrained in how we were socialized that we think. But we need to get really in tune with ourselves to be able to shift and figure out and get to really, what do we want and what do we desire? So here's a quick little real life example. A few years back, I did a blind champagne tasting, and all of the people there had the same favorite champagne. It was a very well-known champagne. It was kind of a status symbol to be drinking it, and we all knew it was our favorite. Yet when we did a blind tasting, it was the least favorite champagne for everybody there. Again, our minds had tricked us into thinking this was actually what we wanted, when in reality, it wasn't. So is your mind playing any tricks on that? Because that's how you've been socialized. So getting back to those little things to say, do I want this or that, is a really great way to start feeling into that and getting back to really knowing yourself. Somebody had asked a question about, how do I figure out, once the kids leave home, who I am and what I'm going to do with myself? I'm hoping that everything that I've been talking about so far is helping to answer that question. And I would say, don't wait till the kids leave to spend time with yourself and figure this out, right? We have these different things that happen in life that propels us to think more about ourselves, but don't wait. It's important to get really good with ourselves along the way. And also shifting that question, instead of saying, what am I going to do when they no longer need me, to saying, I now have more time and freedom to explore more things that I'd like to do again, is a much more exciting way to look at that question. Um, the next thing I want to talk about is setting boundaries. And that's something that's very hard for people pleasers because we like to say yes to everybody when they ask us something of us. The first thing we need to do is set boundaries for ourselves because others aren't going to follow our boundaries until we start following them ourselves. So again, we need to ask ourselves a lot of questions to be able to set those boundaries. How many hours do I want to work? How do I want to spend my free time? How many hours am I willing to volunteer and do things for free? What kind of people do I want to be spending my time with? Are there people who I give a lot of time and energy to that are really pulling me down that I should be spending less time with? Figure out what you're willing to say yes to and what you're willing to say no to based on what you want as opposed to what is expected to you. Learning to say no is a really big boundary. And one of the things we need to understand is that we can just say no when someone asks something of us. We don't have to give a long explanation of why we can't do it. There are ways we can come up with softening it if you're not comfortable just saying, no, thank you, but no. You can just say, thanks for thinking of me, but I'm going to take a pass, right? We don't need to give a long explanation about these things if they're outside of our boundaries. So start thinking about what those are and what boundaries you want to keep for yourself. And that's a great list to make as well. You don't need to share this with anyone at all. It's just a great reminder of how you want to show up, what you're willing to give, and what you're not. If you don't start abiding by these boundaries yourself, other people aren't going to. So that's a really important one. Now, it's important to notice or realize too, when you start setting boundaries by yourself, saying, I'm not going to give as much, I'm not going to spend my time pleasing everyone else and putting myself last, some people are going to revolt because they're used to you saying yes to everything and being there for their every whim. That's okay. Don't feel badly if somebody doesn't respond in the way you'd like to. It will take some time for them to come around. I have somebody that I was working with that started setting boundaries at work. She's working on a global team and had meetings for 14 hours a day, minimum 14 to 16 hours. Nobody else on the team was doing that. So she decided that she's no longer going to do that. She's going to set the same hours everybody else does. And then people would come back to her and be upset that she wasn't meeting at the time she had before. She couldn't take meetings in those times. And she felt like she wasn't seen and she wasn't heard because people weren't abiding by this. And we had a talk and I helped her understand it wasn't that people weren't hearing her, weren't respecting her, or felt like she should be treated different and shouldn't have those shorter hours everyone else had. It was that for 2 years, she'd been allowing people to treat her in this way and to allow for these hours. So when you make that change or you make any change, it's going to take some time for people to adjust. And by the way, there are some people who are just going to leave your life completely when you start setting those boundaries. And that's okay too. If you have people in your life that all they do is take, when you stop giving so much, they might leave. And that's okay. Because we need to be really careful about who we are allowing into our life, who we are allowing to treat us in this way. And remember that acting this way is not selfish, it is self-care. The last thing I want to talk about is fall in love with yourself. You deserve this. Romance yourself. Take yourself on dates. Do good things for yourself. Appreciate yourself. Talk to yourself in a really nice way. So many times we spend time thinking about the things that we're bad at. Spend time instead thinking about the things we're good at. Don't spend time thinking about all the things I don't have. Think about all the things I do have. Don't spend time thinking about things I don't like about myself. My hair isn't working right today. My butt's too big. Instead of think, I have a great smile. I've got great skin, whatever that might be. Think about all of the positive things. Give yourself these positive messages. They do so much to build your self-esteem. They are so important in building your confidence. So remember to use kind words for yourself, kind words in your mind. If you're thinking negative words or negative thoughts, think about how do I shift those to positive words and positive thoughts. Give yourself positive mantras. For the clients that I work with in hypnotherapy, I create recordings that they listen to every day for 30 days afterwards. And they have all sorts of positive affirmations in them that help them to understand and see how they can be more confident, how they can have all the things they want in life. And if you are not at a point where you can use these positive words, if you can't look at yourself in the mirror and say, I love you, if you can't look at yourself in the mirror and say, I am confident, I am capable, start visualizing and thinking about how that will feel in the future when you're able to do that. Think about what that looks like and how you want to get to a point. Because if we can't actually do or feel these things in the moment, visualizing what it will look like, how it would feel, helps us get to a point where we can realize that and actually feel that way. And another thing to do, if you're not able to give yourself these positive words and affirmations, talk to a friend and have them give you a pep talk. Think about all the great things you would say to a friend that you love and adore or a loved one. Write all of those words down on a piece of paper and then say them to yourself. And then take yourself out on a nice date. Whether it's a bubble bath, a nice meal, a walk, whatever it is, romance yourself. And appreciate yourself for all the learning and growing that you're doing. All of these things will help you build confidence and build the right mindset to be confident. The last thing I want to remove from what we're doing is stop comparing. The pleasing takes away from what we're doing, putting other people first, but comparing as well. When we spend time comparing ourselves to others and what they're doing, instead of focusing in on ourselves, that brings us down. I had a client who was a senior vice president at a company, and he did amazing work, but he had the CEO above him who would actually have ideas for him and what other things he could do. And he took that to heart and said, oh my gosh, I'm not doing well enough. And we worked through that, and he shifted that to how lucky am I to be working with somebody who brings great ideas that I can incorporate into what I'm doing. And shifting that little bit of mindset made such a big difference and got him to a place where he was feeling much more confident. So instead of comparing himself, taking this in and on himself and understanding that he had all the tools he needed, helped him to move forward. So I would encourage everybody to make sure they're taking time out for themselves. If they don't feel like they can do that, remember, what we prioritize is our choice. People are talking about saying we're the hardest on ourselves. Give yourself the time and the space and the permission to know that you deserve this, that you deserve the time. Make the time. So just to circle back and wrap it up, kind of everything that I've gone through. You deserve to put yourself first. It's not selfish. Doing this will improve every area of your life. Make the quiet time to get to know yourself and prioritize that time. And if this isn't something you can do on your own, get help with it. Ask yourself lots of questions to get in touch with how you're feeling and what you want. And as you're asking those questions, make sure you're really listening to your own answers without any outside influences. Remember the things that bring you joy and incorporate those into your life. Be gentle with yourself and shift that negative self-talk to positive. Love yourself, romance yourself. And if you can't fully say it or believe it, visualize, imagine what it will be like to be able to do that. Remove the guilt and comparison from your life, and always remember, trust yourself and your intuition. And the more you do that and believe in yourself, the stronger that intuition, that self-belief will get. And the universe will always support you in that. So I hope that's been helpful. I think we can open up to questions now, Adina.
Yeah, sure. If you have any questions that Julie hasn't already answered, please pop them into the chat. I have a couple of questions, but before I get to them, I wanted to summarize for you, Julie, and for everyone else as well, the things that I've taken out, because I often need some really practical things that I can do. Like the theory is amazing and I know it's important, but if I don't have and then what the next step is, I don't follow through. So the first thing that really, really struck me was when you said that self-love is not selfish and it's so important for real life balance. Everybody wants balance. Everyone talks about balance, but you're not going to get it unless you prioritize yourself. So thank you for reminding me of that. Put time for self-reflection in your diary, schedule it, and don't procrastinate or run away from it. I need to do that. I absolutely need to do that. And I need to take myself away somewhere to make sure that I don't get interrupted, and so that people know that that's time that they can't come to me. So I'm going to schedule that in my diary. That's a real lesson for me. The other thing that I really want to try and do, especially over the next few days, is to do a body and mind scan first thing in the morning and to pay attention to what comes up. That really is often the only very quiet time in the day before the rest of the house is awake. And when nobody knows that I'm awake, that's time that I can take for myself and really take a few minutes to really think about myself without feeling like I'm taking away from others at the same time. And one of the big ones, and I'm going to come to you to get some help about how to do this, is start thinking about what your boundaries are so that you can work out what to say yes to and what to say no to. So thank you so much, Julie, honestly. One of the questions that's come up is that people are really, well, one person in particular is honestly struggling with trust in herself. Do you have any suggestions or ideas on how to trust yourself more and how to take those steps to be able to do that?
Absolutely. The funniest thing, I love the way the universe works. I was actually just working with a client on this today. And I'll give you the example. She had some employees she had some issues with. She's now looking to rehire again, and she is worried about trusting herself to make the right decision. So what we worked on realizing is she was looking at just the times where things didn't go well, right? She just discounted 20 points that actually show how well things are going, how well she's interacted with employees. So that's the thing, is when we're not trusting ourselves, it's usually because we feel like we've made a bad decision about something in the past, and we focus in on that one bad decision instead of the 100 smart decisions that we've made.
Yeah.
So it's really about focusing in on all of the things and experiences and times you have trusted yourself and that went well. And remember that and train your brain to focus in on those instead.
And I love what you said about actually writing them down, because you can't run away from them if they're on paper in front of you.
Exactly.
Thank you for that. So one of the questions that I had was, you've gone through an incredible transformation in your own life since I first met you 5 years ago. what was the very first thing that you did, the first exercise that you did that you felt had an impact on the way that you saw yourself?
Um, I think the first thing that happened was actually I was at a weekend retreat and I was told to practice looking in the mirror and saying, I love you. And I'm like, that's so stupid. Why would anybody ever do that?
Mm.
And and that might be the reaction some people have said when I've said that today too. It's those things that we react to in that way sometimes that we need the most. And it is, I think it's realizing that, I've been seen as confident throughout my life and my career, but I didn't necessarily feel that confidence or that self-love. And it's realizing that and saying, okay, it's time to make a shift.
Mm. Yeah, I appreciate that totally. And I don't think I've ever looked at myself in the mirror and said, I love you. And I think I do, but I've never actually like bald face looked myself in the eye and said it. So one of the questions that I had from a bit earlier that I think you've like answered, but I feel like it's important to say is I wanted to know like if you can give some guidance around how to change someone's deeply formed impression of you. But actually through the talk, I've understood that it's not up to you to change their impression of you. It's up to you to set your own boundaries. And if they don't deal with that, then that's their problem and not yours.
Exactly. And why are you working to change somebody's impression of you in the first place? Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Isn't there that saying that like what other people think of you is none of your business?
exactly. Well,
Yeah.
and yeah, if somebody's, first of all, you've got to think about it. Like if you're seeing, 50 people are thinking of you in a certain way, is that how you're showing up? Right. So
Yeah.
check in with yourself and see. But it's not your job to change anything that you don't want to change and be.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate that. So Liesel's just asked regarding your transformation, your own personal journey, Julie, what was the thing that had the biggest impact that you did that made you make these changes in your life?
I think the biggest thing, the biggest impact actually came a little earlier and it's stayed with me, and that is meditation. Again, that was something for years, especially when I was in corporate and running a million miles a minute. You need to meditate. I'm like, I can't meditate. I can't do this. I tried. My first meditation experience was awful, by the way. I went to one of those places where they're like, you must sit on a cushion for an hour. And if your nose itches, you're not allowed to scratch it and you're not allowed to move and you're not allowed to have thoughts. And that's
Yeah.
not how meditation works, right? It's just sitting and giving space to your mind. And I think that's the biggest thing is really um, giving yourself that time and space. And once you start allowing that, and once I started meditating regularly, I realized all of a sudden one day I wasn't so reactive.
Yeah.
And then somebody asked for advice on something, and I'm like, who is that wise woman that gave that answer?
I love that. That's amazing. And the other thing as well is that there's so many different types of meditation. It's not one size fits all. So do the research, try something. If it's not working for you, try something else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So Shayla wants to know, have you seen physical manifestations of burnout? And what do you do when you get there?
Yeah. So years ago, somebody said to me, stop saying this job is killing me because it will. Right.
Okay.
And it will. Like if that's how you're thinking, it is happening. And if that's what you're feeling, you're likely in burnout. So the physical manifestations just start with being tired, with being edgy, just not feeling at your best, having brain fog, things like that.
Yeah.
And the best thing to do when you get to that stage, first of all, take good care of yourself to begin with. Learn to say no
Yeah.
before you hit that stage. But once you get there, allow yourself time for rest and recovery. That is the most important thing. So I've started taking yoga classes again, where something that happened this morning, and I've realized with this type of yoga, is we spend a lot of time in between in shavasana, which is relaxation. Because they said The work is not the actual physical work. Where that all gets incorporated and embodied is the relaxation and the integration.
It's not just a nap, it's actually doing really like real physical benefit to you.
Exactly. So it's, I always, when I'm doing talks, pick this up and say, what do you do with this every night? You recharge it. Why don't you recharge yourself? And we tend to keep thinking we can keep going.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that Shella said, and unfortunately, she's now at a stage where she's very sick, and I'm so sorry to hear that. All I can say is you need to take care of yourself. You only have your one body, your one self, your one life, and that is so much more important than anything else. So rest and recovery is so important, and allow yourself that. And don't be worried about somebody saying, oh, she can't hack it. That's not the case. We've all been through this.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with what you don't compare yourself to anybody else. If you are at this point, it's very important to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
What is going to nourish you most? Is it going and sleeping for a week, right? I used to feel guilty sleeping during the day, right?
Oh, I love it. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah. And that's the thing. If we need that sleep, we need to take that sleep.
Yeah.
We need, if we're not exercising right, they're all the things we're told to do all the time, but they're right.
Yeah. I mean, the thing as well is that we're organic beings, and we need certain things. We need sleep, we need food, we need oxygen. And if we're not getting those things, our bodies and our minds react to that.
Yeah.
I have to keep reminding myself to go back to the basics as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We got time for one more question, and that is, what do you do if you know someone close to you who likes to please others and feel that their purpose in life is to do that? Is there anything you can do to support them?
It's having a really gentle and kind conversation with them and saying, I love how giving you are, but I am worried about you, that you don't give enough to yourself.
Yeah.
And just start with that and be there for them.
Great. Thank you so much, Julie. This has really been amazing. If anyone has questions that we haven't gotten to, please send a note to us. Julie is going to give us just a one-page guidance sheets, which gives you some exercises that you can do that she's mentioned tonight. You can take them and do them in your own time. Remember, after this, please, one thing, big or small, for another woman. It doesn't matter what it is. Just reach out to someone and make a difference to them. Our next virtual walk is the 16th of June. It's at 7:15 for a 7:30 start Sydney time. The virtual walks are an incredible way for you to connect with people all across Australia, and for you to be able to meet people who are from the regions or the cities, wherever you are, and to be able to get a completely different perspective to the ones that you get from your everyday life. Our next conversation series, which are free events, is on the 30th of June. It's on everyday wellbeing for working women, and it's presented by one of our mentors from Canberra, Angelina Ainen. So watch our social pages to get more details on that. Again, Julie, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for being with us tonight. Bye.